Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday's Morning Commute. Welcome, everyone, and hello, Catherine. How are you doing?
Morning, guys. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm not bad. Not bad. Not been doing much, to be honest. What have you been doing these last few days?
Oh, I'm going to share that with you later. Actually, I've been riding my bike like Mary Poppins.
Right, it cut out there. Did you say riding your bike like Mary Poppins?
riding my new bike with my little basket on the front, and yeah, I'm going to be sharing that actually in the coaching focus. I'm going to be talking about state of happiness, which I think Chris will enjoy this morning as well.
Oh, cool. Well, I'll leave you. I'll leave that then for you to say later on. So, can I just ask you who have we got on the show today?
Oh, sorry, that's me, isn't it? I so need some more caffeine this morning. Yeah, so my apologies. We've got Chris this morning on our Wellbeing Thought for the Day, and looking forward to that. And we've got an interview with the beautiful Faith Liversedge, who is a storyteller and marketing expert, as well as looking at my coaching focus based on happiness this morning. But first of all, we've got Will on the news desk from New Model Advisor. Will, good morning. What have we got on the news today?
Morning. What is it? What is in the news today? Gonna skip markets. They're up a bit, but no one here is interested. So first, furloughing. So the national news is just like the scale of furloughing and when that will stop. So I mean, you may have seen this already, but it's basically the government's paying about 23% of all workers' wages at the moment. That's extraordinary. And I don't know. We don't know what. I mean, bigger minds than mine would work out what effect that's going to have. But it's going to have an effect politically and economically for a while to come. Yeah, you know, if it's a total value of furloughing claims to the government is about £8 billion. I mean, I've got it slightly wrong, but the point is when it will stop. So the Chancellor said yesterday that he doesn't want a cliff edge. But when he began the scheme back in March, it must have seemed a long way away then, but it was only meant to run until about June. So the question is, it can't be, okay, it's got to end. It probably will end soon in terms of the idea of it being something anyone can access, but it can't just end abruptly. Essentially, just go from a kind of socialist sort of communist state into a capitalist one overnight. So I mean I'm being trite, but you know, it's that's a really big question. So there's some news about that today on Nona May's site. I mean, you can find it elsewhere, but Jack Gilbert's done a good job pulling that together. Some bits of Rishi Sunak's interview and some talk about the bounce back loans as well. So yesterday the government launched its bounce back loans program, which provide easy access loans of up to 50,000 to small businesses, with cash expected to be distributed later this week. The loan scheme is being provided by banks, so HSBC, Barclays, Lloyds and RBS providing the scheme, and they've had 100,000 applications so far. But of course, as with the furlough scheme, it's the furlough scheme. I mean, what you don't want is that you've had the scheme, and then we try and get the economy moving again, back to business, and a load of businesses fail. Then you know that's sort of horror scenario. I mean, money will, no doubt, but so it's trying to sort of bridge this gap between the sort of the furloughing and getting the economy moving again, which is not an overnight process, as most of you obviously appreciate. So that's that. And I'm talking of furloughing now. Obviously, some advice firms have been doing. No nationals have been doing it. One of the firms that we reported on was Succession, who had furloughed 100 staff. Obviously, very big firm, Succession. National, based in Birmingham. We've kind of been reporting, not necessarily dwell too much, but we've reported on a few of Succession's troubles over the last year. And just an update to that story is it's one advisor leaving the business, but he used to be, I think, the sort of chief compliance director, he's sort of been quite senior at the firm for a long time. He's called Wes Nixon. I don't know if anyone know him, but he's left the firm, and it's just a little bit of an update on that. And again, not to have a dig at Succession too much, but it's just sort of charting how they're getting on, basically, because I know that a lot of people are involved with them. Just some other bits bobs of news. We've got a podcast up today. I put it up which I'm just going to give a plug to now. It's an interview. Basically, it's a podcast I did between the Amati fund manager, Paul Jordan, a small company's fund manager. But he's very, very good. I mean, if you follow the Citywire ratings, he's at AAA. He's been AAA for months and months, like for the longest period ever. And if you don't, I don't know if you may be passive, maybe active, but it's a guy who knows an awful lot about the companies, and he also knows an awful lot about the healthcare sector. So I put him together with Mark Stevenson, who's a futurist, Citywire event speaker, also incredibly knowledgeable guy, and basically saw what happened. And we basically had a long debate about the healthcare sector and obviously about COVID-19. But I really do recommend it to you because there's some really insightful stuff there about the vaccine, basically the chances of us getting a vaccine at all, and some very level-headed discussion about whether that will happen or how long it will happen. If it doesn't happen, what we do then, how harshly we should judge our own government, how we should judge the performance of other governments here, and generally what we want to sell healthcare sector to look like in terms of our ability to produce drugs, the healthcare sector's ability to produce drugs for everyone and not just the illnesses of Westerners, like the illnesses of Westerners, including obesity and hair loss and things like that, and the economics of it. I mean, it's really interesting. I'd never have, in wildest dreams, be able to sort of research all this stuff myself. So give it a look. I mean, I include that's in the news. That's happening today, and that's the headlines.
That sounds awesome. I'm just laughing at myself when you're talking about hair loss, and all I can see in the corner of my eye is Rohan's hair standing up.
I pray that Rohan never loses his hair.
But no, that sounds wicked. I'll definitely be downloading that podcast today, Will. Thank you.
Cheers. And
is there anything in particular that you guys are looking out for today?
Well, I mean, no, it's always a very difficult question, that, because if there was, I wouldn't tell you. But we're publishing. Basically, we do our special edition every month, and we've done this. The one this week's called Advisor Active, which sounds like maybe a little bit plug for active management, but it's not. It's basically based on the fact that most of the people we've had as cover stars, while a few are 100% active, 100% passive, most are somewhere in between, and they've often got very good reasons for doing that, and often, but it's. You see, every firm's trying to solve the same problem for clients, just differently. And it depends on cost, proposition, their value for money proposition, their in-house expertise, the nature of their business, the staff, the resources, loads of different things. Where it decides what they're doing. And there's so many different ways they're cutting the cake. There's some really honest stuff in there from active managers, and on the performance of active managers, some honest stuff there on passive management. Interesting stuff about passive ESG. Interesting stuff about what the DFMs are doing to help people with this, but a lot of advice firms taking matters into their own hands. They're not trusting any one factor here to deliver for their clients and making their own minds up. But that's just a ripe area for people to see what each other are doing. That's the main thing. So that's going to be out today. It's called Advisor Active. You can read it digitally, like the turn page version, and you'll be able to see it on the thing. On the site in terms of the web pages, but have a look at that, engage with it, criticize it. So, it doesn't matter, but I think it's what your peers are doing. So have a look at what that is, and that might, you might have something to discuss there. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah,
so
amazing. That's great. Thanks, Will. Dan, over to you this morning.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah, so this morning we've got Mr. Chris Budd. Morning, Chris.
Hey guys, how we doing?
And his financial wellbeing thought for the day, brought to you by the Initiative for Financial Wellbeing. So take it away, Chris.
Thanks, Dan. So a couple of things. I thought I'd go with a very exciting shirt today. The reason for that, I'm going to take a tip out of Nick Elston's book, the fabulous Nick Elston. I hope you really enjoyed. And I'm going to admit a bit of vulnerability because I'm not feeling my best today. I don't know why. I just woke up in a bit of a mood, so I just thought I'd share that with you. I'm feeling a little bit low. So having got that out of the way, the financial wellbeing tip. So this is a book that I recommend everybody have a look at. It's the book that inspired me to get into the financial wellbeing stuff. And there are 5 parts to wellbeing. I hope you can see that. 5 parts to wellbeing. They are career, social, physical, community, and of course, financial wellbeing. Now, my challenge for everybody today is, what do you know about your clients in those other 4 areas of wellbeing? Financial well-being is the only one of those 4 that doesn't give any well-being itself. It's the one that feeds all the others. Money is a tool to generate well-being, to generate happiness. And so we should be using money in that way and not seeing it as an objective in itself. There's, I think I mentioned last week, an age concern survey. They surveyed all of 15,000 people and asked them what was making them happy, over 70s, I think. And the phrase that came out of that was the people who demonstrated the most well-being were those who had meaningful engagement from society. I think that's a great expression, and it really nicely sums up those 5 areas of well-being, or the 4 areas other than financial. So what's really important about career, social, physical, community and financial well-being is that they all build together. No one of those is, well, actually social is a bit more important than the others, but they are all important. And so what do you know about your clients in those other 4 areas? Take some of this time of being a bit quiet maybe to have a look at your files and have a think, what do we know about our clients in those 4 areas? That's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for that, mate. And if you just have a look in the chat there's a lot of people who are feeling exactly the same. So you're not alone there, mate. On to the next guest. So today we've got Faith Liversedge, who is a storyteller and digital marketing specialist. Good morning, Faith.
Morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Okay. So for anyone who doesn't know you, you specialize in digital marketing, but you also have a background in financial services and journalism as well. If you could just tell us a little bit more about the story and how you came to launch your marketing consultancy.
Yeah, sure. Well, writing is my first love, which is why I went into journalism after graduating. But I also really love project management and psychology and seeing how that can work together to get people to do things. So rather than entertaining them through just reading something, I like the idea of being able to persuade somebody to do something. So when I moved to Edinburgh in 2003, there's not an awful lot of journalism in Edinburgh anyway. So it was a natural move to go into marketing really, because I had those sort of writing skills already. But I was also really interested in the other sides of things. So, and then if you work in marketing in Edinburgh at any point and you want to sort of get on, you can't really not end up in financial services at some point. But I also really like the idea of getting into the corporate world and getting my hands on some bigger budgets and perhaps maybe some creative projects. It wasn't quite as creative as I thought, but I got there eventually. So I worked for Standard Life, Prudential, Royal London, and then latterly Nucleus, which is where I kind of really got into my stride, because the time I joined them, they were at a very, very experimental point when they could be quite wild with their marketing, because they weren't quite as profitable and quite as grown up as they are now, although they're still doing great marketing. But I was in there when it was kind of quite fly by the seat of your pants type stuff. And that gave me a lot of freedom, and they gave me a lot of confidence to fully indulge my creative streak, but also to combine that with the project management and all that sort of supportive marketing stuff, which I was sort of tasked with, which was supporting the sales team with messages and creating campaigns. And while I was there doing that, I got a lot closer to advisors and got to know about their world and how their worlds were changing through RDR, etc. And found out that what they're doing is really pertinent to people at the moment, but there's this big lack of awareness about what financial advice is. There's still a lot of distrust and people thinking they're shiny people in shiny sales suits and all of that kind of stuff. So I sort of saw a real sort of gap between all of this good stuff that they were doing and all the people that were kind of hiding their light under a bushel, so to speak, in a way, because it's a really hard thing to sell to people and to market. Especially when people don't really expect, or they're not looking for somebody who helps them with the softer side. So there's a sort of real challenge there in being able to persuade people that that is what an advisor does, and to be able to play that out through a number of different marketing tactics, if you like. So that's why when I sort of came to the end of my run at Nucleus, I decided to go it alone and see what I could do to help more smaller companies rather than one big company, because I like learning and doing new things and working with lots of different people and spinning lots of plates. So I wanted to expose myself to that and to see what I could do to help people. And so I set up my consultancy 3 years ago, last month, actually.
Oh, awesome. That's so interesting. That's really interesting. And I think one of the ways to bridge that gap between the kind of old-fashioned way of thinking about financial advice is the essence of good storytelling. So you go on a lot about that a lot in your work. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what that means and what storytelling is?
Yes, sure. it does sound like a fairly nebulous phrase, and people sometimes think I'm going to sit down and read them a book. But it is it's used in content marketing a lot. But it really is the key to all marketing, but especially in financial advice, particularly because of the reasons I've just mentioned. Because it's the only way to differentiate really what you do. If everyone is selling the same products, then what is it about them that they do that's different? And there's so much that's different about every single advisor. And that's the bit that where the storytelling can help, because it's not something that you can really sell or persuade people of in one sentence or on one web page. It really needs sort of slow development and lots of layering of different messages. And that's where the sort of storytelling phrase comes in, because it's about finding the hook that makes you different and using that hook and riffing on that hook, if you like, in order to portray all the different great things that you do. And you can do that across lots of different messages and lots of different channels, but it all comes back to that same hook. So you're not just repeating and you're not just selling this message to people, but you're telling them about it in a much more emotional, engaging way, whether that's through case studies or talking about your own story about how you came into the business. There's different ways that you could dial up and dial down with it, as depending on how blatant you want to be about it, but it all comes back to that main thing that makes you different, and that needs time to kind of develop.
Yeah, and I think one of the ways that you kind of get that story across and you've focused on in the last few years is video marketing. Now that's a big buzzword in the Next Gen Planners community as well, because everyone's trying to get into that as well. But have you got any tips for how financial planners can start to produce video, and how they make compelling content as well, not just stuff that is out there every day?
Yes, so it depends, because there's lots of different aspects of video. There's the kind of corporate flagship video that you could have. There's the case studies where you're interviewing clients and getting them to talk about, and that's super powerful, but also quite difficult to organize. And obviously we can't do that now. But then there's the sort of the easier, lower hanging fruit video, which is where you're doing this piece to camera, and it's, short clips, answering people's questions. So that's where I would suggest that people do start small with that and start putting that on LinkedIn, YouTube, all of those channels. But what I would suggest is don't press yourself to be perfect. People like the authenticity of it. They like to see the whites of your eyes. That's why it's so good for gaining clients' trust and getting them to appreciate who you are as a knowledgeable, approachable person that's not going to be stuffy or intimidating when they go and see you. So it's really, really valuable to that point. And also it assaults all the senses in one. So unlike a podcast, which is also great, but a video, because it's visual and sound at the same time, it stays in people's minds for longer. So it is a great tactic to use. And also if you put them on YouTube, then YouTube's the second biggest search engine after Google. So you've got a good chance of being found that way, because not many people are really doing it, because it is intimidating. But if you are doing that piece to camera and you start small and you start doing it regularly and you start executing, then you'll get into the rhythm of it really quickly. And at the beginning, no one will really be looking at you anyway, because you won't have a very big audience. So you'll be able to sort of almost practice before you start to attract lots of people. And by the time you get to that point, you'll be a pro at it. So I would say have a plan for 6 or 7 of these tiny, tiny snippets, so that you're chopping up all the different benefits of advice or the benefits of what you do. And also in terms of the content, whether it's video or blog post or whatever, the tip I would always give is keep a record of all the questions that you get asked by your clients, because those are things that people are searching for in Google. Those are things that they want to know, and that should form your editorial plan, if you like. And then if there's one main topic and one main question that they ask you, then keep that in mind for one sort of overarching theme to keep coming back to.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, isn't it? It's all about giving people what they're looking for. And
yes,
it's not any more difficult than that. It's literally just giving people what they're looking for.
That's it. Yeah, it's all there already. You're already doing this. You're probably already doing it when you see people face to face, and all the anecdotes and that's what marketing is. All of that good stuff that you're doing that you may not recognize. Don't hide it away. Keep it, and then spray it out over all of these different channels, and just keep telling, not just to attract new clients, but to keep telling your current clients, because they might forget what it is that you're actually doing for them. And you can use that to develop your bond with them. And then once you've got that bond, you can legitimately ask for referrals or any of those things. So content is king, which is another phrase, but it is.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Yeah. That's brilliant, absolutely amazing points there. So thanks very much for that. And the question that we always like to ask every single one of our guests is, what are you most looking forward to once lockdown is lifted, which could be quite soon actually, or could not be, I don't know.
That gets me really excited. It has been prepped for a while, but this week I'm really, really, really missing in Starbucks you get these sausage sandwiches with ketchup, and that's just a great start to the day. And I really miss not just the taste of it, but the ritual of it, and the whole getting, I actually drink tea, I don't drink coffee, I'm really uncool, but getting a massive cup of tea with my sausage sandwich, and that's sort of one of my treat things that I'm really missing. So all of the things I'm missing are food based.
I think that what you've just said there explains the difference between you and me and maybe our class, because you're looking forward to Starbucks and I'm looking forward to a Greg's bacon and sausage roll. So that probably explains a little bit about me and a little bit about you. So
I am posh.
Yeah. Brilliant. That's been fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Faith. Thanks very much for coming on today, and yeah, we'll see you very soon.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So now it's time to go over to Catherine for Coaching Focus. Take it away, Catherine.
Yeah, morning again, guys. I'm feeling hungry now, thinking about sausages. So actually on Chris's note this morning as well. So Chris, I'm really struggling this week. I'll be really honest as well. I'm feeling, just really meh at the moment. So I want to do a very brief exercise with everybody. And this is something I did yesterday. So yesterday on Sunday, I ordered myself what I call my Mary Poppins bike. One of those bikes with the little baskets on the front. It was hilarious. And we all went on a family bike ride yesterday. And I did something called being in the present moment. It's something that's really important to do for yourself, but also for your clients, because sometimes when clients come in to work with us, they're focusing so much on the future because we're asking them to focus on the future, that sometimes it's actually useful to also get them to focus in the present moment. So I just want you all to close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to remember a time when you are totally and utterly happy. Wonderfully, wonderfully happy. That might be the day your children were born, the day you got married, a lovely sunny holiday you went on last year, maybe a childhood memory that's popping up for you. Something where you're feeling wonderfully, truly happy. And the first thing I want you to do is just to recognize, where are you feeling that in your body? Where are you feeling that the most? Are you feeling it in your head, in your hands, in your chest, in your arms? Where are you feeling that? And I want you to think about how you were feeling in that moment. What did you hear? What can you smell? Who's with you, perhaps? Are you with somebody else? And just take a moment to just take all of that in. And then I want you to open your eyes. So that was a very, very, very quick exercise. And if you're able to, just write down a couple of notes if you've got a pen and paper handy. But the reason that this is really important to remain in the present moment is because for any goal to be achieved, we have to establish emotion and feeling. And if you think about the word emotion, we need motion to feel emotion. We need to move it and pass it through. So if you're feeling a little bit meh in the morning, or maybe your clients are feeling a little bit like that when they come and see you, get them to think about a time when they were really, truly happy, and see if they can identify what was it about that moment that they loved the most. Was it the place that they were in? Was it the people that they were with? And when I did this yesterday on my bike ride, I rode so fast on my bike. I was way ahead of all the kids and Gareth. And I just took a moment to just take in all the smells and the sounds, And it just brought me right back to when I was a kid, and I just felt really, truly, wonderfully happy. So not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, just being in that present moment. So some of the things that you can do with your clients is to get them to think about, what experiences in their life have they felt that happiness? And when they're thinking about the future, what elements of that do they want to bring forwards? And it's the emotion you're wanting to capture with them. So you're listening to their language to think about what is the emotion that they captured in that moment that you want to bring forward into their financial plan. So if they're talking about retirement, is it important they have certain people with them on those plans? Is it important to you perhaps that they even have those people present in that meeting, for example? And one of the little websites you might want to take a visit to this week is one called futureme.org. And it's a great little website. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it before, but you can actually write a future letter to yourself on that website, and you can put in your email address and it will deliver it back to you on a certain date. So this is great, I think, for kids to do as well. If you've got kids at the moment in lockdown, you could almost create like a bit of a time capsule, get them to write a letter to themselves. You can have it emailed to your inbox in 30 days time or 6 months time or whenever you want to. But again, it's a nice, useful little exercise to think about, well, how are you feeling in the present moment? And how do you want to be feeling in the future? So just couple of little tips for you. And we have got a few minutes left, actually. So I don't know if anyone wants to just share their thoughts on what came up for them in that happiness present moment.
Well, we're doing an open mic.
Yeah, let's do it. Open mic. Who wants to share their happy memory or happy moments?
I'll share one, Catherine, but unfortunately mine was tainted slightly. Brilliant exercise, by the way. I really enjoyed that. But mine was tainted slightly by the previous conversation about Greggs. So my happy moment was actually at a petrol station, which is on the way to a firm that I visit in Ainsdale. And I would regularly stop off and have the £2.95 Greggs breakfast. And that is just 10 minutes of me time from on the way to Ainsdale. So I was actually thinking about a £2.95 Greggs breakfast, getting my loyalty points before heading over to some client meetings. I don't know what that says about me, or maybe it was that Faith had skewed my thinking with the talk of Starbucks earlier on.
Nice. Tom saying afternoon, my partner, it was her birthday treat, totally relaxing. Think I was skewed to by the food. Yeah, was anybody else skewed by food? Wonderful.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much for that, Catherine. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think we want to hear a few more of them as well. So if people want to continue putting them in Slack or something like that as well afterwards, that'd be great as well. Cool. So tomorrow we've got our usual Wednesday phone in with Rohan and Andy Coles, focusing on all things paraplanning this week. And tomorrow we've got guests Caroline Stewart, Rebecca Tuck, Richard Allen and Joe Campbell from Parasols as well. And on Thursday's show, Catherine, we have...
Yeah, we've got a pre-bank holiday. It's very odd to have a bank holiday on a Friday, isn't it, for V-Day? But we've got a pre-bank holiday special with crafting from the beautiful Gretchen Betts and your surname, Gretchen, and some gaming from Alistair Walker so that you can entertain the whole family over the weekends. So have an amazing week, guys. Stay in the present moment of happiness, and we'll see you all again in the morning. Take care.
Thanks, guys.